She helped a lonely neighbor carry groceries and was speechless when he handed her keys to his mansion. My morning started the same as every Tuesday. Coffee gone cold on the counter, laundry half folded, and my inbox reminding me I was still unemployed. But that wasn't the worst of it. The worst was the silence. After my divorce, the apartment felt less like home and more like a waiting room for the next stage of life. One I couldn't afford a ticket to. Rent was due in 12 days. My savings? Down to 3 digits. And yet, the most unexpected thing happened at 11:17 a.m. I saw Mr. Whitaker again. He lived in apartment 4C, one floor below mine. White hair, stooped shoulders, same gray wool coat no matter the weather. He rarely spoke, never waved. Some neighbors said he was a retired writer. Others swore he was a recluse with no family. But this time he was struggling up the steps with 2 paper bags splitting at the bottom. "Wait, hang on," I called, rushing forward. One bag ripped just as I grabbed it. A can of soup rolled down the hall and hit a wall with a clink. "I've got it," I said, catching the other bag before it tore too. He looked up, startled. "Thank you," he said softly. "I don't usually accept help." I smiled. "Well, good thing I didn't ask." He blinked, then almost smiled. I walked beside him, carrying the bag to his door. Apartment 4C smelled like books and old cologne. He paused at the threshold, took the bag from me and said the last thing I expected. "Would you like to come in for tea?" I hesitated. But something about his eyes, tired, gentle but quietly hopeful, made me nod. "Sure," I said. "I'd like that." His apartment was dimly lit but clean. Books lined every wall, titles in multiple languages, some with cracked spines and yellowed pages. A framed photo of a woman sat on the mantel, beside an old typewriter and a chessboard frozen mid-game. "I was just putting groceries away," he said, voice soft. "Please sit." As I helped him sort the bags, he asked my name. "Claire," I replied. "Claire Mitchell." He gave a slow nod. "I'm George. George Whitaker." Over tea he told me stories, not about himself but about the books on his shelves. Quotes. Authors. Once famous writers no one remembered anymore. "You write too?" I asked. He paused. "Once. Long ago." I glanced toward a hallway with one closed door. "What's in there?" His gaze followed mine. His jaw tensed. "My wife's studio," he said after a moment. I haven't opened it since she passed." I felt my heart tighten. "I'm sorry." "She painted," he continued. "Landscapes. Oceans. Places we never visited but planned to." He stood slowly, walked to the mantel and picked up the photo. "She died before I published my final book. I never showed it to anyone. After she left, I just stopped everything." The room fell silent. And then he surprised me again. "Would you come by again tomorrow?" I blinked. "Me? I'd like to hear more about you. I could use help going through some old things." I nodded, unsure why. Maybe because no one had asked to hear about me in months. Maybe because behind George's sadness I saw something I recognized. A loneliness that felt like my own. I visited George every day that week. We talked about everything: loss, art, memories. I cleaned shelves he hadn't touched in years. We laughed more than I expected. One afternoon I found a canvas tucked behind the couch. It was unfinished, only a seascape sketch in faded blues. "She started that one the week before the diagnosis," he said quietly. The next day I returned with my old acrylics. "I paint too," I said. "Mind if I try to finish it?" His eyes misted, but he nodded. Every evening I added another layer: soft waves, warm sky, a horizon she never reached. By Friday something changed. George sat taller. Smiled more. He even opened the studio door. Dust floated through the air like time itself. Her easel still stood there. I set the finished canvas beside it. "She'd have liked that," he whispered. I was wiping tears from my cheek when he handed me something small and cold. A key. I looked at him, confused. "I want you to have it," he said. "To the house. The real one." I froze. House. My wife and I bought a place in upstate New York. A little stone cottage. I haven't been in years. Couldn't bring myself to go alone. I shook my head, stunned. "George, why me?" He smiled. "Because you walked into my silence and brought light." And then even softer, "I'm leaving soon. Not to die, he added quickly, but to live somewhere quiet. A care home near the sea. I stared at the key in my hand and realized he was giving me a future I hadn't asked for, but one I suddenly couldn't imagine turning away from. 2 weeks after George gave me the key, I finally drove up to the address he scribbled on that wrinkled notepad. It was dusk when I arrived. The cottage sat at the edge of a pine forest, stone and ivy covered, just like something out of a storybook. The windows were tall with faded green shutters, and the air smelled like pine needles and old earth. I stood at the gate for a long time, gripping the key like it might disappear. When I opened the door, the scent of old books and lavender hit me like a memory I'd never lived. Inside it looked untouched, as if George and his wife had just stepped out for groceries. A tea set sat on a lace runner. A painting on an easel faced the window, unfinished like the others with a horizon left blank. I wandered room by room, taking it in slowly. The warmth of the place wrapped around me, but something else stirred beneath it. A shadow. A locked drawer in the study. A faded photograph turned upside down. An envelope tucked under a floorboard labeled, "If she ever comes." My breath caught. The letter was sealed with a wax stamp, George's initials. I didn't open it. Not yet. That night I couldn't sleep. The silence was louder here. Every creak in the floor, every whisper of wind outside the windows felt like something trying to be heard. At dawn I found myself back at the easel. Only this time I added something to the unfinished painting. A small red scarf on the windowsill, a detail George had told me his wife wore every autumn. I don't know why I painted it. Just felt like it belonged. By the second day I knew I couldn't leave the letter unopened. I sat on the porch, the sun warming my skin, and slowly peeled away the wax seal. If you're reading this, it means I trusted you enough to come here. And if that's true, then there's something you need to know. George's handwriting was slow, deliberate. This cottage was never just ours. It belonged to someone else first. Someone who never got the chance to live here. Her name was Lydia. My sister. I froze. She disappeared when I was 19. The police ruled it a runaway case, but I knew better. I was the last one to see her. We fought that night. She told me she felt invisible. Said no one ever really saw her, not even me. The last place she said she was going was here. The cottage our parents left us. I searched for weeks, months, but I never found her. Then 1 year after her disappearance, I found a painting propped on the windowsill. It was her scarf. And she had signed it, "For the one who finally listens." I looked up at the painting I'd just added to. The red scarf in the window. The exact same one. My heart dropped. Suddenly, this wasn't just George's house. It was Lydia's. And someone had been here before me. The next morning I walked through the woods behind the cottage. George had mentioned Lydia loved painting under the trees, that she said nature had more to say than most people ever would. After 20 minutes of walking I found it. A tiny, crumbling greenhouse half swallowed by ivy. Inside was a forgotten artist's studio. Easels, canvases, old brushes hardened with time. But one canvas sat fresh. Covered with a white sheet. I pulled it off. And gasped. It was me. Standing in the cottage doorway. A red scarf around my shoulders. The signature in the corner read, L.W. Lydia Whitaker. My knees nearly gave out. How could Lydia have painted me? Had someone found her paintings and added to them? Was this some strange inheritance? Or was she alive? I turned around quickly, eyes darting. That's when I saw her. Or rather, a figure at the edge of the trees. Too far to see clearly. But watching. Frozen. When I took a step forward, they vanished into the woods. I returned to the cottage shaken. That night, the landline rang. No caller ID. I answered with a trembling hand. A voice, soft, almost broken, whispered, "You brought color back to a place I thought was forgotten." Then the line went dead.